Hi, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people ask me about and ask a lot of people that have sheep and goats, and that is, which is better? Which do you prefer more? Do you like the sheep or do you like the goats better? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit more about the longevity of having both of them and what you buy and when you buy and all of that and how it plays into which of those animals may be best for you. Stay tuned. Okay, so one of the main things that you've got to look at when you're looking at sheep and goats is really what you're looking for. What you have time for. Are you working a full-time job? Is this your full-time thing and you're getting into it, you're retired? What exactly do you want to do? So the number one thing you have to think about is shelter. Okay, so for example, you can go out and buy sheep. You've put up some fence. You've got everything the way that you want it, but you don't have shelter. You can put the sheep in. They don't need shelter. They do need shade. If you're in the summer, I'm in Alabama, so yes, we do need shade. But as far as shelter, you don't need any. With goats, you're gonna have to have shelter. So you're gonna have to have some type of a lean-to, something up that is gonna allow for those sheep to be able to have shelter. You're also going to have to make sure that it's not something they can climb on. If you build that roof small enough, let's say you put it at a slant, the goats are going to get up on it. And if they get up on it and it's not strong enough and it's just something you have, maybe a tarp or something, it's going to get torn down. So in this case, which one do I like better? The goats or the sheep for shelter? I'm definitely going with the sheep. As with any type of shelter, as I mentioned, one of the big things you're also going to need, obviously, and there's a video up here that talks a little bit about the fencing in the video that I did earlier or at the end of last year that talks about the best fencing for sheep and goats. But one of the biggest things is the fencing, the containment, how you're going to keep them in your pasture. I personally have had a lot of issues with goats. You know, some of the horns, some have horns, some don't. But the ones that do are going to get their head stuck in the fence. And I have had to go through and actually cut extremely expensive woven fence to get their heads out to save the life. Sadly, I've come up and I've had a goat that had gotten its head through and could not get out and had broken its own neck. So that's something to think about. I've never had a problem with sheep. Sheep will stick their head through, very rare that they will. And if you look on our playlist of videos, you will see one of my videos I show where I release all of the sheep into a pasture into a paddock for fresh pasture, and one goat. And the goat immediately goes over and goes through the fence and is eating something that they don't, they don't really need. It's in a main pasture where there's tons of stuff. So you have to really be careful. And in that same instance, as I said earlier, if you're working or not, or this is your part-time or your full-time thing, here's a couple of pictures that I'm showing you all. Do you really have time to put pool tubes on the horns of your goats? That's a big issue, and it's going through in and out of the fence to stop that. That's something else that you really have to think about. So with this, again, sheep or goats, I'm going with the sheep. Let's talk about parasites real quick. I know that's a hot topic. I think at the end of the day, you've got to look at both of them. Both can get the parasites. You have to watch what you're doing. You have to do a continual grazing is the best way to do it. If I had to, I'm no expert. I like to think I know quite a bit about the goats. I've had them for 20 years. I've had sheep for 4. I don't see a big difference. It's how you treat your animals. So I think on the parasites, I think it's a tie. I think that you've got to look and say, hey, if I'm going to manage one, it's going to be the same. A lot of people talk about how much they love goats and how much personality they have. And I would agree with that. I think that goats have a wonderful personality. We've had some wonderful goats over the past 20 years on the farm. Personalities can also go in a bad way. Not to paint the goats in a bad light, but they can. We've had some goats that have been extremely aggressive, loving and very loving, but they want to get into the fence. They want to get They want to get into anything that is going on. And that may not seem like a big issue, and that may be cute when things are young and they're young and jumping around. But I'll give you an example of one of the things that we've run into that's important to think about, especially if you plan on expanding your farm. Last year, we started introducing chicken tractors onto the farm. And when we built our paddocks, we put some sheep and goats in there, okay? Sheep did not bother the chicken tractor at all. We had them in the same pasture, and the sheep were grazing around it. It was not a big deal. The goats, every one of them, all three of them jumped up on top of the chicken tractor and actually fell through the mesh of the top of it and was a huge mess. One of them got trapped in there, and it was just total chaos. So the personalities are great. But I will say this, and this is one of the pieces that I talked about starting off from the beginning, whether you're buying it or you're raising them. The personality of your animal, mainly your livestock animal, has got an already predestined personality based on the way it was treated before you bought it. So we have brought animals here that are extremely skittish that have been handled like livestock animals and have had no loving at all. We have also had some that we've raised and we have brought in here, and from birth, even not bottle fed, they know we're not going to hurt them. They know that we care for them, and they're very comfortable around us. So think about that too when you're looking to buy a sheep or a goat, is the personality, even if they're young, the personality is going to be a lot of predestined on what they were involved in their environment before they ever got. But in this personality, I would say it's about a 60-40 goats to sheep. So I'm going to go with the goats on these. Personality-wise, yeah, they are goofballs and they're a lot of fun. Let's talk a little bit about health and hardiness and overall just healthiness of the animal. So we've had goats for 20 years, and out of those 20 years, what have we had trouble with? We've not had trouble with any hooves at all. I mean, I've bought a couple of goats that the hooves are actually curled up, and it takes me an hour to get the hooves straightened up where someone didn't take care of them. We've not had any problem at all with any type of hooves at all on the goats. Sheep, you know, we've been doing that about 4 years now. We have had problems with hooves. We've had hoof scold. I've not had any hoof rot, but they are a little bit more delicate with their hooves. I think that the goats, because they're always climbing and jumping up on trees and scratching and moving around and jumping up on chicken tractors, I think that their hooves are a little bit better. So in this case with the hooves, I would have to definitely say the goats are better. As far as hardiness, you know, it's about the same. The biggest thing that we've seen is there's been so much interbreeding of goats over the years, and that's one of the reasons I don't register and didn't register. Let me back up. We tried for a short time registering them. I thought it was a bunch of nonsense. I really did, because, you know, I would have people that I would meet that were intermixing them and still registering them, and I stopped. But going back to the hardiness, I think that the sheep are good. I think the Boer goats that came in from South Africa have done some major damage because they've brought a lot of diseases in and they've been intermixed with animals. But as far as overall hardiness, overall sheep are better. Hoof-wise, goats are better. Cost and profitability for these, I think, is about the same. Okay, I do. But if you're buying them or selling them, but you've got to look at what the cost of your time is, and that's a big thing. If you've got the time and you don't mind digging goats out of fence, and you don't mind having to repair your chicken tractor, and you don't mind anything that could possibly be, you know, climbed up on or dug into with their hooves, then, you know, goats are the way to go. I personally have a full-time job outside of the farm, and so I don't have time, if I've worked a 9 or 10 hour day, to come home and spend an hour and a half getting a goat out of a fence. Call me selfish, I don't. You know, we had goats for 20 years. We have slowly and gradually gotten completely away from them. In fact, we sold our last 2 goats this past week. And just because when you really look at the time and effort that you put into the sheep and the time and effort that you put into the goats, it's a huge difference. You know, huge difference. So as far as the cost is roughly the same, you know, in a money term. But the cost of your time is what you really have to think about when deciding which one of these animals you want. Here are a couple of things that I think is one of the most important parts of the video that you all should know. I saved it to the end. Goat rams or goat billy goats, they stink, okay? And if you have one full-time up here on your farm, it's gonna stink, okay? You wanna have people come up and see your animals, it stinks, okay? My ram doesn't. I would say my sheep, you know, the ram in my sheep is not as aggressive. That's number one. Number two, if you're doing any type of electric fencing, other than, you know, like Premier One has that wonderful woven fence, okay? If you're just doing like a Gallagher reel or an O'Neill reel or anything like, or Brian reel, if you're doing those and you're doing 1 or 2 strands, you're not gonna put goats in there. I don't care what people tell you, I have done it. The sheep stay in. I've trained my sheep to 1 strand and I don't have a problem at all with them. The sheep jump out immediately. So I'm going over a couple of things that just off the norm that you all need to know. Those are 2 really big things that you need to look at, is the containment. If you're doing any type of electric fence, when a goat walks up to a fence, its main priority, when it gets popped, it's not to jump back, it goes forward. So it can also tear your fence down, sheep will jump back. And the stink factor is huge. We have kids come up here on the farm and that's not a good time. So keep those 2 things in mind.